Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today I'm talking about a record called Hey Clockface by Elvis Costello. This is just something I happened to cross at the library, and contrary to the very conventional wisdom, I often do judge books by their cover in the sense that if they have a very interesting cover, I'm intrigued. So I took this album out of the library, also took this Beck album out of the library because it has an equally fun cover. Now, while this cover art suggests whimsy and liveliness, this is in fact a relatively melancholy album. And that theme is suggested by the bony, perhaps witch-like hand on the cover, as well as the sort of muted, like real painting kind of colors that maybe suggests an early 20th century aesthetic. But regardless, I was glad to have the experience listening to Hey Clockface. As I mentioned in an earlier video about various musicians I'd seen in concerts, one of my frustrations seeing Elvis Costello in concert is it seemed like he had so many songs that even though I have quite a few Elvis Costello songs that I really like, it felt like I went to that concert only knowing a small fraction of the catalog and thus wasn't familiar with a lot of what was in his show. And it turns out Elvis Costello is quite the prolific musician. This is his 31st studio album. It's from a couple years ago, 2020, I think, and there's been one more since then. And as far as I know, he is still going. So let's talk about what exactly is on Hey Clockface. So it starts out kind of weird with a song called Revolution Number 49. Now, Beatles fans might be thinking of the very weird song Revolution Number 9, which is basically just John Lennon saying a few words over ambient noise. Now, Revolution Number 49 is not that abstract, but it's not a song either. It's a poem read over music, and the music kind of gives a melancholy, wintry feel. The poem, I feel like it's not great if one just looks at the words. They don't add up to much together, but the effect of the whole track is quite compelling. It creates this image of peacefully lying together, almost in their graves, imagining a life and then a death together. Track number 2 shakes things up. It's called No Flag. It's a sort of Prince-like synthy sound with a bit of a steampunky oomph in it. It seems to be about wanting to have something profound to say, but not having a flag, so to speak, not having like strong political convictions, and thus only being able to talk about the ups and downs of one's romantic life. And that's the only profound message one has to offer. Track number 3 is one of my favorites. It's called They're Not Laughing at Me Now. Kind of reminds me of the work that Elvis Costello did before with Burt Bacharach. And the lyrics have a beautiful ambivalence to them. On the one hand, they're saying, well, who needs those people? You know, if they're laughing at you, they were never really your friends. But it also feels like it's saying, well, if you get rid of all the people who are laughing at you, who are you going to be left with? Sometimes in this world, one has to choose between bad friends and no friends at all. Track number 4 is called Newspaper Pain. This kind of feels like a thematic continuation of what we heard in Revolution Number 49. And while this one is closer to being a song than a poem, the vocal delivery isn't quite singing. It feels kind of like rapping or semi-melodic beat poetry. But it has a similar melancholy winter feel to it. And it's kind of about how there's all this stuff in the news and one would like to think that one learns something from all the dark content of the news, but we can't really do anything about it. So we just continue our lives and continue to be exposed to the miserable. Track 5, I Do, brackets Zulo's song, continues that affect of, love me through life and into death. It's sung slowly with a lot of brass that gives it the vibe of being in like a noir movie, an old smoky detective kind of film. Track number 6 seems to be the biggest statement. It's called We Are All Cowards Now. It kind of continues that melancholy noirish sound, but this is the one where I most want to interrogate the meaning. Like it could just be saying, we no longer live in a medieval or, even 18th, 19th century culture where there's something in a lot of us to want to be valiant, to want to be chivalrous. Now our society just lacks people who have the strength to do anything. Another interpretation is that it's actually like a pro-gun song. There's a verse that goes, they're coming for our peacemakers, our Winchesters and Colts, the rattle of our Gatling guns, our best cowboy revolts and threats and insults. Then again, there's another verse that kind of sounds like it's making fun of contemporary gun culture. The emptiness of arms, the openness of thighs, the pornography of bullets, the promises and prizes can't disguise. We are all cowards now. So who knows what's going on here? My sense is Elvis Costello is at least a liberal, if not a bit of a leftist. I mean, one of his great old songs was a very scathing song about Margaret Thatcher, I believe, called Tramp the Earth Down. There are certainly people on the left who do have pro-gun politics. The world doesn't shape around the American political spectrum, but it's just kind of interesting that it's maybe there, but it's not sure. And I don't want to project a sort of very strong meaning onto him that he might not attend at all. But it's certainly a song that makes you wonder. Track 7 is the catchiest song on the album, and it happens to be the title song, Hey Clockface. It has a kind of Dixieland upbeat feel to it.
Samples and takes inspiration from the Fats Waller song, How Can You Face Me?
But the subject matter continues to be quite dark. It seems to be someone yelling at time, as if they expected as they grew older, they get used to the idea of time and aging, but in fact, they're just getting angrier at time and feeling more and more betrayed. It ends with the scathing line, How can you face me now? Track number 8 is called The Whirlwind, which is yet another cynical song, and it's played wistfully, mostly just on piano. And it seems to be about someone who's like brooding, saying, no one understands me, I'm somewhat so alone, while also being a bit self-deprecating and saying, well, maybe my feelings aren't that exceptional. It ends with the line, you think you know me. Okay, maybe you do, maybe you do, maybe you do. Track number 9 is another one, I think, with aspirations to be a hit. It's called Hedy O'Hara Confidential. It mixes, more modern synthy and drum machine sounds with more of an upbeat jazz pop kind of delivery. It kind of continues the album's noir movie vibe and tries and gives this noir movie a named character, that character being Hedy O'Hara, who I believe is like a newspaper advice columnist who seems to have gotten themselves into some trouble. The song continues the message of we are all cowards now, that society doesn't produce heroes anymore, and also revisits the sort of omnipresence of newspaper themes from Newspaper Pain. Beyond that, it could be juxtaposing this sort of old imagining of a society with the current world where news and social media and gossip and questioning is everywhere, and it makes it harder for figures like Hedy O'Hara to have a consistent audience to speak to a whole society because everything is so fragmented and nothing is upheld as sacred. Track number 10 is called The Last Confession of Vivian Whip. And I thought a possible interpretation of this is Vivian Whip is someone who writes to people like Hedy O'Hara for advice, and someone who hasn't appreciated their life up to this point and really needs some reassurance. Track 11 is called What Is It I Need That I Don't Already Have? This is a comforting song in a way. It says, don't regret aging because chances are you've done a lot in your life. If you just tried to be happy on a daily basis, you did what you could do. But, it also is a song that brings in some doubt to that message. This is not an album that allows itself to be optimistic for too long. Track number 12 is Radio is Everything. And then again, it shows that sort of optimism and pessimism living right by each other. There's a line that goes, I sound much better than I look, like a hero in the book. So even when it feels like the singer is uplifting themselves, they can't do that without also being self-deprecating. Track 13 is called I Can't Say Her Name. On its own, this is a fairly simple breakup song, but again, listened to in the context of the whole album, it kind of revisits that image we saw at the beginning of sort of a couple lying in their graves, through life and into death. And now it's introducing a breakup into this album. This album was up to this point saying, well, I'm pessimistic, but at least there's love. And now it's even taking that love away. Track number 14 is called Byline. So again, possibly revisiting the newspaper theme we've had several times on this record. However, the way the lyric is delivered, it's not actually saying byline, one word, but by line, as in writing line by line. And if one thinks of this album as a movie, it's kind of like the end of the movie where the camera zooms out and we see the person writing the script, trying to put their struggles, their depression into words, taking it slowly, line by line by line. So overall, I thought this was sort of a very imaginative, impressive album. It's interesting to see what Elvis Costello is doing. It's certainly cool, when someone who made good music in the past is continuing to be creative and innovative. And I feel like a couple of the songs on this album are ones I'll want to remember. Again, They're Not Laughing at Me Now and Hey Clockface. I feel like the problem is because this album has a bit of a theme, it does get a bit repetitive in some of its sounds. And because those sounds are melancholy, you just want a few more uplifts on here. Like it's cool to take in the art, but just for casual listening, there can be a bit too much melancholy for me. But let me know what you think of this record and anything else, frankly, in Elvis Costello's discography, because there's so much, and as much of it as I like, there's clearly a lot more that I just don't know at all. So let me know. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.